thank you to the growth of this place and all the growth and soundness of my mother and father, and even my sister, who terrifies me and whom I apparently terrify. So, I terrify my sister. Let's give some thought to that. Give, in the name of my sister, her well-being and her soundness. This is about as safe as I get, and I never feel safe with my sisters around, but I'll try to do something. And I don't know, like I'm pretty unsure in my life if I'm supposed to learn to just accept that my sister might be permanently dangerously ill, and I've just made a mistake in any sense that I live my life as I do, that I don't have enough money to just live apart from my family because I should. My mother and so forth. And that's basically where that logic would go, and I don't, well, that's not the way that I'm choosing. It's not my reality. So whether that looks one way or the other to other people, and I feel like I need to acknowledge, because of that, or for my own health, acknowledge why I live the way I do, and not to, whatever I can do in these magical places that I wish to dream up for myself, to direct them as you would if you were a child in a magical world that helped to relieve your suffering, didn't dissociate you from it, if anything, poignantly focused it. And then, in so much as you were threatened, as much as you might resort to imagining that you're being threatened, because that's more than you can do about all the other threats to your life, but then to abstract them like a mathematician and try to just at least spend enough time staring at them written on the blackboard and see how they all make you feel. And the sounds you make when you get a chance to be in the classroom by yourself, muttering to yourself how these things, these impressions about the world feel to you. And that if you could dream up some magical place where you could have those feelings, then you're already well on your way to dealing with it. And that the privacy, about how you feel, about how you abstract your siblings or your parents to your own personal safety, an important place. And people who have been abused will end up doing that anyway, right? You'll have a lot of privacy to do that. Out of your school of doctoral hard knocks, it may be that the people that you might want to hear you the most are the least likely to think of you as anything more than a delusional schizophrenic, or just hurt you, or just, you can't, doesn't mean they're the worst people, but you can't tell people about how sometimes they feel to you while they're living life and doing what they think a dad or a mom or a brother or sister is supposed to do or be able to do. They don't have to listen to how that makes you feel. Wants to imagine that happens, or that's happened to them, and humans do get on from it. They endure this. This maybe isn't an accurate way of looking. If you're trying to find something, you're saying that like anyone who's abused has this kind of awful type of dynamic to deal with, and you know what it is. And you want people to listen to you, and that's going to make you feel better and your family feel better. And I don't know if that's all true, but it's not a bad idea to think about my sister in this space and think about when you're still hurting me and say, how can I reduce the potential for harm? And how, can I be the man, but I can't just acquiesce to someone who's violent. Like, it's like, even if you're watching, you wouldn't say that the bad guy's just going to change because, like, okay, you don't have to pay me back $20,000 or go to prison for raping me, and we'll just go on like nothing happened. It turns out quite well. How do you think that turns out for you? And what you might find in families with abuse, you might want to use a tool that I created for myself in words, which is like, the way things seem to need to be for you, me, and our family make violence inevitable. There's no way that we really even should trust each other, because it sets up a dynamic, whatever you believe or I believe or whatever even I concede to or you concede to, that's going to be, it's not going to really stand the test of time. Such a primal conflict in how we understand our personal safety and survival, and things as abstract as our ego and how we're treated and how people talk about us, and our suspicion even, if nothing else. And it's often quite accurate that the way people talk about us bring about illness. It's like cursing us, an accident. They can have a influence, and before someone's bones are broken or people are raped, they've lived in a disintegrating environment, and we need to know how to clinically, or at least abstract this without going to town on various families necessarily until we improve this knowledge to supernormal degrees, to risk hurting people with its application. But the risk is high, right? Already, as things are, it's even if it's a comparable theory to how to approach our interests of our fellow man, whose hands are the surgeon of human safety that's going to come that knowledge. So, but it's as necessary as a heart surgeon. That same. So we speak of these things, or I do, in an abstract way. I don't presume to know what should be done with them. I think the sun should shine, everyone should be happy, and we could all just lay down our swords and feel better, because that really is each other. And no war is necessary, and we can all put things in our worries and our cares and stop doing anything remotely that brings anyone to some suffering. And we could almost do that in a way without changing anything in society in the world. Because on its deepest level, it's just a suggestion. And that's where the best magic is done, and that's why, or included in what reason you could concoct, if you're even the thought of a child, that we could imagine a place just right here where I could release any potential for harm and danger in advance of systems of families that almost invariably made that inevitable. My sister's fears, or years of abuse, or all the types of torturous anxieties set us, so that we can't agree on enough fundamentals to preserve either one of us from some kind of indignity, which is just simply not to be borne. We don't even know how to relate to each other when that's not the case. So. I'm not the expert, but the problem is that my sister thinks she is. I imagine she's quite a smart lady, and she thinks, and she's learned as a teacher to think that she's the expert on other people and how they should be. And if you don't let her do that, or whatever you say or do objects to something about who she is on that level, she just escalates that, and it becomes even more violent. She really needs you to do what she says. In her abstract world and the way she conducts her mental dynamics in life, she indulges or doesn't indulge various degrees of brain function and health based on how our abstract faculties developed in life. Her provision for the potential danger in applying them without a good deal of modesty and awareness affecting another person. So she applies a kind of philosophy of me when dealing with me. Never been informed by my own voice and my safety. In fact, needs to avoid doing so at all costs. Her sense of identity. I get the same thing with my brother, for all I know, the world around me. So I started studying. I had time, I like poetry, and I fear for my safety. I might as well admit it that despite I wouldn't be here and I wouldn't be talking about these things if I didn't have enough reason to fear for my own safety every day. If only precisely because of how I choose to live my life. It's taught me to expect danger, but I want to create a difference. My mind has been cynically poisoned by being in a world of so many cults. I don't think people ever tell themselves the right story, unless it's deeply disturbing. Because that's the only way you can make yourself safe, if you've sides of the human life. And you've lived in a fashion where you've returned home enough time in your life, or your roommate or a family member, a mother, father returned home, and you've learned to feel scared and tighten up when they're around. You've learned to feel nervous on the last few blocks of your drive home because on some level you don't want to tell anyone you feel unsafe in terms of what you might be facing when you get there. If only because your wife, your husband, your brother or sister are angry today. And they've learned to feel they can lower their inhibitions in terms of what we could call what someone expects you to endure, as to what they themselves would never endure, about how they choose to speak to you, their tone of voice, the way they seem to think of you as though something whose purpose in life could never be better served than just being a receptacle for their abuse and make you in order to survive. And if you interrupt that because it started happening before you could form the words to complain about it, it's going to get worse. And you can always, and certainly every single way, you would want to interrupt it and to get them to stop doing it to you. That is a complete interruption to them. You're interrupting your predator. Imagine a grizzly bear eating salmon, right? And this is precisely the most loving parts of the world, the most trusting parts of the world, people we gave all our connected to the people we give our labor to the rest of our life, who could be in any way, for any reason, essentially swallowing us whole. The word go. Or to behave as though that were the case. Because you can't interrupt anything or everything that they're doing that is disturbing. Let's go. That's the sun coming through here. I'm going to check the time. It was like the sun was getting my attention. 12 o'clock. Or, yeah, 12 o'clock. Okay. Let's go. I'm going to take off my hat. Okay, well, strangely enough, it's still recording. Or amazingly enough, let's take some sun in before I go. And then I like it when I get mobile again. Ooh, there we go. Thank you, Father, Son. And I do hope that I return home in safety and with everything I should bring to my home. That's my responsibility as a man, if nothing else, to bring home the stuff of safety, the kindling of safety, the kindling of soundness and peace. And I'm just happy if it's there. I don't need to take full credit for it. You know, and it may be that my mom will never look at me and say, Landon, I don't think I ever fully gathered every day, if only because whatever you did, you had chosen at such a young age to make sure that it brought soundness to your home, no matter what anyone said or did. To interrupt such wonderful occupations simply because they interrupted things that were related to many different kinds of occasions that we or those around you have had to disturb you, even sexually, in disturb your safety and disturb the easy flow and growth of your life, like a tree in a forest that didn't deserve to be spoiled or disturbed with noises beyond that of the twittling of squirrels and the songs of eagles and the movement of the many long, peaceful years, which, if left to visit upon this earth, in any patch of this earth, unmolested by any but the most pure, true, strong, and loving, hungry for life types of people, would be the true source of unending gold and knowledge that would protect us as much as you've ever been protected from every kind of fucking economic religion in the history of the world. So saith the Solomon. Let's go. And that's in honor of my mother and father and son. Oh Satan, oh Son, oh Father. You know, I think it's interesting that everything that we think is evil about Satan is dark about Satan, and is the kind of strength that must be said to live within our Father's flesh and blood, that has and would and have us continue, though he could tell us not with the voice that might have been robbed from him, as though from the beginning of time, to continue such occupations as gave our Father a voice about everything that's been taken from the voice of our Father and our fathers for 1,000 years. And can't you hear it in my voice? Can't you hear that I would add this? I would walk with myself as a 5-year-old and put it into the appropriate terms. And in doing so, I would be my 5-year-old's father. I would be my father's father and my mother's father, and I don't care. And I would walk with them and be as though their father for 1,000 years. They're fucking Abraham, you know? And I would just make sure that they had the voice of their father, a kind of voice that could travel back and be the father of all of my people, the way the mighty leaves and boughs of the greatest trees, unmolested by all the industry of this world, as any and all the whales and the elk and the deer, the goodness and greatness that's lived upon the sounds of true and free people for 1,000,000 years. In those years amounting to many things so different than our years that they're not even the same thing, not even the same concept. That when it exists in the word lawyer, it is not quite the thing it used to be. I've got an hour to get home, and I would take all this energy and whatever it is and whatever I'm harvesting and whatever's good for my house in this magical place where I have gone to deal with the various wounds that I suffered from. And maybe it'd be best to say that I suffer in some heavenly kingdom that you come to with all of your wounds. And as you suffer and lament, and as you build a kind of knowledge that heaven respects, you entreat, if you can, just the kind of heaven you deserve on this earth and always did. And you speak it with a will through all the generations of your kind. And those that can hear, those that ever long to hear and truly hunger to hear the sound of their Father, the sound of my voice, and the sound of the voice of the Son, and add to it simultaneously across all time the sound of their voice. And there would it wouldn't be a communal identity, a communal pyre of our sanity. It'd be every wonderful thing you ever want to assure of the earth, to make of every word that ever came out of your mother's fucking vagina, and out of the very beautiful and most greatest confluence of the biological celestial orders, organs, blood, goodness, greatness, and law, and the force of every knowledge that could be, in whatever language it would ever be spoken, that came out of your mother and father when they were born. It comes out of your mouth even now as you breathe, and you must taste some of the wine of that, or you will die. And breath alone will not save you, and none of your breaths will make you live. But you must breathe the wine of your breath somewhere. You must free your mind for that which takes that wine away from you and disabuses you of the kind of taste and hunger which you have borne forth through the centuries, that hunger which is wine itself, so that your greatest agonies, your greatest suffering, your greatest imagination of the goddamn misery of God himself and his Son Jesus Christ and its parasitical soul system, sucking system, more like soul-sucking system. You had that breath and that wine and all the hunger and in all the true agonies you could ever name. You could go to any mountain, any place in nature and say the name of your enemy, and it would, I promise you, you will only speak the names of heaven. You will only draw forth the greatest currents of protection that ever came to the mightiest generals of the world. Have that at behest of your own voice the day it came out of your mother's womb, and you have always had it. It has never been gone from you and from your side. And that hunger does speak and stay by the side, their own Father's voice to all of your people. If you can hear the sound of this voice, this song, by day and by night, never been long removed from every decent law and knowledge that humans ever came on, if it was worth anything. And then, when that is restored, you'll see people walking upright, healing from diseases. You'll see human beings healing from all kinds of awful diseases and mental parasites, generations of wounds of war and alcoholism and psychosis. You'll free people from all the negative demons of the world. The song that should erupt from the human lips those days which, as ferocious as they may sound to you now, are worthy, at least I can say, and you can say in your way, to walk beside and every 5-year-old in my family tree, and certainly in my own flesh and blood, that myself at least, in all the appropriate proportions that ever the Father administered to the flesh and blood of my mother and my father. They lay sleeping though a corpse in the infancy of this day. Their grave is open wide, and it to speak. Hail Satan. So that's what I mean when I, okay? So you know what kind of Satanist I am. What kind of witch. What kind of man. What kind of child of what kind of mother and father. And all that I hope and fear. And occupy myself the best way I see fit, in a way that probably doesn't fit into most people's ideas. I know that I can be home in 45 minutes before my mom leaves to see my sister from whom I'm. And you wouldn't know how two people could be so incapable of safely and soundly interacting, a brother and sister, until you met me. And if you talk to me and you talk to my sister with respect, you would see that the problem between my sister and me, and it's connected to our problems with our mother and father, started a long time ago. Right? And you would have to bring expert knowledge to that. My sister and I, even if we possessed the appropriate education, almost really couldn't bring to bear. Well, you need a therapist, you need an arbiter, but there are no such things that are risk. I barely rise to the capacity to theorize about it. Essentially, I mean, it's a lot of years not to know someone who you know, and if you don't, there's probably something wrong, and neither one of you have really laid claim to naming it properly without probably throwing one another into a good deal of disrepute, if nothing else. A shame that cannot be borne, a guilt that cannot be accounted for, and this is just par for the course. Enough for enough people that are talking about it. You know, like, what's the point? I've never seen any literature on it. I wrote books about abuse that were prefaced with the idea that it's because I have found such scant literature on the subjects which I would think most come to bear upon my continued ability to live. And that's saying a lot. Born in a particular family, in a particular kind of economic language, and with all the wonders and beauties of flesh and blood, no more dear a grace in song and knowledge as I would sing on any day or dawn of this world, that my mother and father live long and be safe and free in all my flesh and blood, whatever they may have done to me. And I can say that with all, and with a certain amount of trepidation. But I would have, I think, to power, no greater use for my power than to preserve the length and health of my flesh and blood throughout all time, and to heal them from all their diseases myself, and to lift all of the unnecessary yokes of time off of their beautiful baby chests, and off their hearts and their throats and their minds and their brains, and their daily labors or their prayers or the language coming out of their lips in the name of some fucking forsaken God or another that has never, in my estimation, now or then or ever, taken an adequate account of the truth and decency of my own flesh and blood. Hail Satan. Oh my God. Oh, I gotta piss something fierce. I'll come back to my starting place here.
Heidi, I think we've all chosen a fine day.
Yeah, I see you like to look.
Yeah.
Yeah, me too. Hi, hello. Seem to have struck each other fairly nicely. Thank goodness for that. I am, after all, moving off to the side, which I don't mind, doing. It's nice when we're kind of given. I don't want to thank you. Just courtesy is great. I hate it when people stop and molest you when you do them a favor. White people are notorious for that. They'll do a favor for them and they'll molest you. it's like save your molestation. It's okay. It's not the currency of every awkward social situation. It's just like I know I'm being a bit of a stickler when I say that, but that's how it feels to me. It's where my mind is at. It's like human beings use a currency of humiliation that be worthy of the most atypical sociopaths. It just happens all the time. You ever been in social situations and like people say all kinds of awkward things to you? Maybe you're intoxicated, you're scared. Like people enter a party, like they enter the stage, they're always scared, but the performance is exhilarating. And I catch myself, if I'm a little nervous, and the mouth is running, and it looks like someone's really listening to you, and it's just like, oh fuck, I've started being someone, and that's gonna cost something. It's like an unholy theater of the damned, I've started being something to you. Now I'm fucked. That's how I get stalkers. You see a woman's mind, you start saying one thing to a young woman, it's like, I've become something, It's like, whew, he's not like any regular man. His penis glows with a heart of gold, and I will put it in my mouth like a Cadbury cream egg on Valentine's Day in my mind 1,000,000 times between now and the next time I see him buying oatmeal and flaxseed. And believe me, it changes things. It changes things, and I can tell you exact moments. And you say, well, that's cute. No harm done, but it changes things. When I talk to people, it changes things. I can see them change as I'm talking. And it's not always for good reasons. And it can be they learn my name or the way they come up to me, and I just let them come up to me instead of going, whoa, danger. Like that guy on that TV show, danger. Some white people, you think they're totally normal, but you feel danger. And you really wish you never met them. And they're usually teachers or religious people. Let's check the time quickly. This is important. We're a little bit late, I think. 12:14. I'm going to call her. You're catching a mother, son.
Hello.
Hello, I'm just 15 minutes out. Yeah.
Oh, okay, that's good.
Just thought I'd let you know. Okay, great. I'll see you soon.
Yep. Okay,
15, 20. Yeah, okay. Bye.
Okay.
15, 20 minutes out. Good. Take me there about 12:30, 12:35. Let's do a rune. These are runes, right? It's weird. The further I go on my druidic walk, brethren, and a Satanist can make up his religion every day if he wants to. I know I just finished saying the other day that liars always want to make up new realities, but a liar is making up a new reality for other people that sucks the life out of them. You get to sit there and basically you have the best chance of not letting me suck the life out of you and putting up every possible objection to continuing to allow me to do so. So I leave you with my weird guffaws with that caution. But, what do we got here? Gebo. Good communication. So seeing the past is like, I've got the message. That's kind of scary when you think about if you're the son of man, meaning if you're like someone who wants to think the best of themselves as a man without using Christian nomenclature and economically driven nails in their own flesh and blood every fiscal year, you could use this language and be like, okay, the communication of everything I need to know through time. Got the message, thank you, Father, Son. And Father, Son basically speaks in every language. So even when they lie to you, they're basically forced to tell you the truth. They think it's a power. It's just something. When Scarface says, I lie even when they tell the truth, he's talking about a power that he has, but he's also telling you something that he can't avoid. That as a liar, you have to tell the truth. I tell the truth even when I lie, because You tell the truth whenever you lie, don't you? To the sun and to the flesh and blood of man. And your children know all the lies, and I know all the lies. And you can probably sense all of my lies. I can sense all of your lies. And, oh, we started a new one. Oh, well, that's better. So we had strength before, and we have Gebo, so strength in the past, so good, strong communication. That helped me deal with evil, okay, and protected me from evil, okay, and that's good. But I have a way of bringing the right type of warmth to my home, so I'll accept that. And the other one is getting the right current flowing. And I think it's like that, the day, like the year, like having a good time in life. I talked about like super managing my energy or super sensing difference of my happiness so that every day I did have a lot of reasons to suspect things because I could feel good, and you might say at the risk of making myself not feel good. Up an obsessive litany of things that I think or imagine don't make me feel good. And then just basically living there for the rest of my life. Like the worst dormitory in the worst school in the worst part of the neighborhood. You know, wore a black jacket and walked around outside and smoked weed and talked to himself. Thus, being in my person or way of manner, just that kind of guy you would expect to be the ultimate douchebag. Filling that adequately. Well, maybe not adequately because I didn't fill any hole adequately, so it'd be like not an inadequate filling of that hole. I wasn't even good at being that person. The decency came through, but that was okay because really I'm just a douchebag. And that was a speech I wrote for my valedictorian speech called I'm Really Just a Douchebag. And it's not true, of course, but that would be funny. Beautiful day, trying to tell a better story. I've managed to get to a point in my proclamations where I can actually logic to support the basis to tell a better story once I've acquitted myself of a suitable justification, I feel, that is demanded, if over time, by the freedom that I've had to talk about the most bitter and dark aspects of what I feel the world is, in deference to the potential that I'm really just indulging all kinds of strange obsessions because I'm some deeply demented human being and or white male. And anything about me then can be used to give a cautionary tale about what not to ever let yourself become in the world. That would be in the category of, hey, that's just bullshit. Which in a friendly way is kind of bullshit. Because the way we talk about ourselves and our occupations when we're not really doing anything. And this, again, if only because we need a rest from all the other things that we do, is called bullshit. And that's what this is. I mean, if it was that, I mean, like, something else in life would be more productive than doing. Now, in a way that, my wallet just fell.